So welcome, masters. Today we will be talking about micro or macro. Now, what is micro or macro? We are always thinking about looking into, the bigger things, external things. So the question is, what is more important? Things that we can see, we can feel, or thing that you may not be able to see or feel. Is it important to get into the micro level means deeper, or is it important that we look into like too much at a smaller level or a bigger level? Smaller means inside, macro means outside, and that's the key thing, because normally we are looking at our environment, we are looking at the outside. Outside of us could be friends, family, work, and then we are governed by that. So if we look again at the concept of space, time, and time space. So when we are talking about, space, the space is unlimited. Now, the realm we live in, it's a 3D world. Our brain is thinking that we have to move. It will take some, effort to reach. We have to go from point A to point B. That's your 3D world. In order to move from point A to point B, there will be some lapse of time. Means you would need some time. Depending how you move, you walk, you go in a car, you fly, the time required will be different. However, there will be some time. Now, this is Newtonian physics. Everything is known, everything is predictable. Here, when we are talking about the space, science has proven that space is eternal and is still expanding. The galaxy we are in is still expanding. So in order to travel, we experience time as linear. The more you have to travel, the more time it takes. So what happens? Somebody says, my parents live in the same city, the other side of the city, and somebody says, my parent lives in a different continent. Immediately what happens? The person who feels my parent is in different continent, distance is more, time taken to reach there will be more. I feel bigger separation compared to someone who says, yeah, my parent in the same city, but the other side of the city. I can reach there in an hour. The other person says, oh, if I have to fly other continent, I will need 24 hours. So I feel more separation just because the distance is more. But the point is, if we take our senses out, it means if we don't consider the senses through our logical, the normal senses, then we cannot experience our 3D world. This problem goes away. So, because we are moving, one point of awareness to another, we are taking time or experience time. But it is all because of our senses. You take the senses out, the 3D part goes away. Time is horizontal. In our normal conversation, in our normal thing, yes, we say time is horizontal in the sense you have past, you have present, you have future. That's 3D world. So immediately there is a feeling of lack or separation. Lack in the sense I'm not with my family. I lack my family. Separation, same thing. I'm away from my family. I cannot meet my, parents, siblings, friends. I cannot attend many functions or festivals. So it develops need, wants, wishes. That's the origin. We start identifying ourselves with what we own, with ourselves, with people, object. That becomes our identity. And that's where we get stuck. Sometime, somebody, someone, somewhere. We are identified with this horizontal timeline, past, present, future, and with these things which we attach to ourselves. All of this is what? Macro picture. It's a bigger picture. It's a outside of us. What happens when we talk about time space? We get into the fourth dimension. From 3D, we are going to fourth. So, question is, what is the difference? In time space, the time is eternal. One long moment, present moment, no separation, no space. In space-time, space was eternal. In time-space, time is eternal. One long present moment. You cannot experience time-space with your senses. The principle and the laws which governs this goes beyond the 3D reality. This is where we have to switch from Newtonian world to quantum world. From Newtonian physics to quantum physics. And what is the difference? We are getting more and more into micro level. So, time is eternal. All possibility exists. You can only experience with your consciousness, your awareness. Whatever you want, possibility exists. You have to pick. It's like you go to a superstore. You want one product, whatever that is. Say you want to buy fruit. There are multiple variety of fruits. You want vegetables, multiple variety of vegetables. Similarly, when time is eternal, all possibility exists, but you cannot experience with 3D based senses. You have to experience through your consciousness, through your awareness. Remember, low feeling gives you slower frequency. Elevated, higher emotion gives you faster frequencies. Means higher. Enhance the connection between how you're living daily life related to your consciousness or awareness. Comes with thoughts. So you cannot move in time-space realm unless you change your frequency. Time is eternal and time is now because it is a one big present moment. Everything is happening now. So you can only move with the change in frequency. And how do you change your frequency? By changing thoughts. So just changing the frequency, you can be in different life stages. Whether it is youth, adult, past, present, future, everything is different stages means nothing but just changing of frequency. Now, what does it mean? One example is think about you're listening to radio. You're driving and you're listening to radio. There are 4 passengers in the car. One likes one particular type of music. The other person likes other type of music. Somebody may likes, talk shows, things like that. What do you have to do? You just change the channel and then you switch from one type of songs to the another one. The 4th person may like to listen to news, what's happening around the world. Again, change the channel and you get to that. So what are you doing? Only changing the frequency. All possibility exists. There are different radio channels which are transmitting at the same time. But which one you are experiencing? The one that you have tuned to. That doesn't mean other options are not there. They are there. They're not disturbing you. Frequencies are there. You cannot feel it. You cannot listen. You cannot appreciate what's happening now. At what point you will be able to? When you tune your radio to that frequency, then you will hear that particular channel, whether it's news, music, whatever, talk shows. Similarly, the thoughts we are in whole day, mostly that governs the frequency we are in. When we change the thoughts, when we change the energy, we change basically our future, because now you are tuned to something different. What is frequency? What's thoughts? Micro or macro? Micro. And hence the importance. Macro is influencing. Your thoughts are coming because of many reasons. But the whole functionality, the impact that you can make, that no, doesn't matter my environment, this is where my thoughts will be. It's all coming from inside, micro. So what happens? Each one of us are stuck in this thought process. Doesn't matter good time or a bad time. Past is gone. Whether you think about a good time in the past or whether you think about bad time in the past, you get pain. Bad time because you're thinking of something bad, you will feel, oh my God, such a hardship I have faced. If it's a good time, people generally feel pain because they say, oh, it's gone. Again, you feel lack. Future, no one has seen. You may have expectations, you may have fear of failure, you may have, lot of doubts, but future is future, no one has seen. Comes the present moment. We do meditation, we do sadhana, we do many different things to be in the present moment, and that is the most difficult thing. Most difficult to handle. And of course, most difficult to stay in. That's where the whole story, the struggle, your efforts lies. How can I be in present moment? Easier said than done, because we are always out of sync with time. You are stuck in the past. He said this to me. She did this to me. I did this. I said this. Why did I do that? We are out of sync. Whether this will happen or not, whether I will get my job, my sports or music, whatever the your passion is, whether I'll be successful, whether I'll achieve this level, all those doubts, wishes, and all those things is future. Time will tell, but we never see future. Now comes the present moment. That's where the effort is. We know this is the right thing. We know this is what it is, but that's the most difficult one. So that is the biggest space and time related topics when you talk, the biggest issue with the time factor. And what happens with the distance? Distance always instantly, like we mentioned before, it separates you. I'm away from my parents, my kids, family, festivals. I want to visit this place. I want to travel. I want to experience this particular moment. Not very recently, but still this year, earlier this year, we had this full, solar eclipse. People were traveling. But then there was weather issue. Some were able to see, some were not able to see. Some were feeling good that it's happening in my city. Some were feeling, well, I have to travel so much. I'm away. I wish I was in that city. All this thing comes from the space. It creates emotional issue. Why? Because it is draining you emotionally. It gives you feeling of lack, feeling of limitation, sometimes feeling of guilt. I cannot help my parents. They need me at this age. So what happens? We are talking about space, thousands of kilometers. When you talk about, going from one continent to the another, we are talking about years with respect to time in terms of decades. That's macro. What is the reality? Reality lies in micro. What it is, when you're talking about the present moment. What is present moment? Of kilometers. You are going in microns, millimeter or micron, micrometer, whatever. So you're not saying 1,000 kilometer, I am flying 5,000 kilometer. You're talking about present moment, which you are talking with respect to distance or time. Anything you look into it, millisecond, millimeter, you're looking milli means -3, -6 means such a small unit. Now let's see what it means. We are talking about millisecond or millimeter. That means we are not going macro, micro, inside. Why it is important? Are we in this with science, or our thoughts, philosophy is taking in one direction, but the science says something else? You may have heard about LHC. If it is something new, this is, it's a tunnel. It's about 27 kilometers long. It's between the border of France and Switzerland. 100-meter deep. So it's not at the surface, obviously, it's a tunnel. It's 100-meter deep below the surface. Why so many, countries have come together for this project and spent so much money? We keep talking about Big Bang, the massive explosion that created our universe. Is trying to reconstruct the conditions which existed right after the Big Bang to understand how everything came together. The purpose is, it is designed, why we need such a long tunnel. The design is such that it makes a tiny microparticle go very fast, almost as fast as speed of light. And during all these experiments and everything, scientists discover 3 new particles. Remember, we say atom is the smallest unit. Within atom, we know very well for many, many years, decades, that there are neutrons, protons, electrons. Then they did find micro, means further smaller particle, and now they found 3 new particles. Why we are talking about this today? Because again, going micro, these particles which are traveling nearly at the speed of light. So far, it was never possible. No human-made object has ever traveled that fast. With this experiment, because this tunnel has electromagnet, that's what it is, Large Hadron Collider, because that's what they are doing, making the particle go through it. Huge electromagnets, huge infrastructure, out of the technology that we have. And scientists could achieve 99.99999% the speed of light. So if we raise the light and the speed of the particle in this tunnel to the moon, light will be ahead only by 4 meters, only 4 meters, imagine. That means so close to the speed of light. Scientists have sent a probe to the sun. That is a fraction of 1% to that of the speed of light. Whereas here, they've achieved the speed of light. So what are these particles? These are subatomic particles. They are charged. That's how they are able to, get the influence of the charge and increase the speed. When they started working on this, scientists noticed something which was totally unexpected. They were recording more particle collisions than expected at certain energy. They could not explain this with normal, Newtonian physics. And this is where new kind of physics that they thought is something we are not aware of. This is where they discovered neutrinos particles, tiniest particles detected or discovered. So tiny that these particles can go through normal matter, unimpeded, undetected. Sometimes you watch those science fiction movies, and then you see, someone is able to go through the wall or, penetrate through uh, glass or whatever the material is, right? This is what these particles can do. They can penetrate through normal matter. So you cannot detect them, not easy, not through the normal means. So they did experiment, and we will see in a later slide where they created two particles. They were traveling and they created disturbance in one, but they found disturbance traveling to the other at a totally different location. How is that possible? They only influence one. How did the other one got the influence? So, sorry. Here we have to talk about the Nobel Prize, which was given in 2022. Three scientists, Anton, John, and Alam. They were working in general, quantum information science. They were working on different elements, but together we can see that they were working on what we call entanglement. Entanglement is again getting into the quantum mechanics. It kind of use that to explain. This was a groundbreaking experiment talking about this entanglement, where two particles behave like a single unit even if when they are separated. So they started experimenting. They created these micro particles traveling in different opposite direction. Particle traveling in opposite direction, one particle, no interference. The other one, they gave disturbance, electromagnetic. And whatever happened to one particle, because of that electromagnetic influence to the one particle, the way the first particle behaved, which was impacted, which makes sense. You impacted a particle, it will behave differently. Without getting impacted, the second particle also behave exactly the way the first was behaving, but without any disturbance. First was disturbed, so makes sense. Why did the second particle behaved? It's funny, but it reminds me of uh, many times in the movie, you will see about twins, right? And you do something to the one, and then the same impact happens to the sibling. It's very similar story here. And this is scientific. So this entanglement was demonstrated, and this is phenomena called quantum teleportation, which makes it possible to move a quantum state from one particle to the other at a totally different location. So distance doesn't matter. So we are not going again in thousands of kilometers, we are going micro. What it means, we are connected. Oneness, unified field. Whenever we are talking about such term, we think it's a theory. It's not. Science has proven now. That's why we say, our brain, all the human brains are connected through the field. And our Rishi Munis, they knew this. Thousands of years, we have so many different examples in terms of references and whatnot. And we thought, oh, it's just somebody's wishful thinking or somebody's just, creativeness and they just wrote it. No, now science is proving what we knew for thousands of years. So what is quantum model? Quantum model, it's an invisible field, but field of energy and information. It exists beyond space and time, doesn't matter which one it is. But because we cannot see it, we cannot feel it, we don't realize it. But this is where everything happens. And the reality is both energy and matter. And this reality keeps switching between matter and energy. And this happens at the rate of just less than 8 times, 7 point kind of 8 times per second. So 3D reality gives us separation. In quantum field, there is no separation. It's all about connection. It's all through concept of energy. But again, you can only sense it through your awareness. How do you get awareness? Inside, not outside. Micro, not macro. Quantum model says all possibility exists in the present moment, eternal now. It exists in electromagnetic form. How to turn these possibilities that exist in quantum field? How to get tuned? And this is where the observer effect experimental came into very, handy to explain that when the experimenter was observing the electron, it appeared like a matter, like electron. But when the experimenter moved away, the attention was taken away, it converted into energy, means waveform. Now it's such a funny thing like magic. If I'm looking at you, you are matter. If I look away from you, you turn into energy. So to prove this, they did one experiment. They created 2 slits and they were firing these electrons through those slits. So what would you expect? You would expect 2 bands on the wall when the image comes, because either the electron will go through the first one or the second one, and you should have the impact on the screen. If it goes through the first one, there will be a band on the left side. If it goes through the right one, band on the right. But that's not what the answer was, means the result of the experiment was. The result was multiple bands, which clearly shows that it is energy form. Only then you get multiple bands. So when the observer were observing, experimenter was there observing, they got 2 bands. When you leave the experimental running, go away, you get multiple bands. So you see, same experiment, same happening, because it's 7.8 times per second. Electron can change from matter to energy, energy to matter. Depends on you are looking at it or not. So don't worry about time. Don't worry about, the macro part. We have to look into micro. 7.8 times per second if electron can change from energy to matter. Think about in 24 hours in total in a day, how much time we spend on our growth spiritually versus this materialistic world. Talking, thinking about he did, she did, I said, I did, all those kind of, energy that we demonstrate versus the spiritual growth, versus working on our inner self. We get stuck in this robotic life without thinking. Same pattern, same thoughts comes again and again. We are always advising others, criticizing others. We don't look inward. We are looking outside. So forget the macro part, look inward. work on yourself. So when we are sleeping, sometimes we do astral travel. Issue is not the distance. Astral travel, you go anywhere and you come back even before you wake up. So distance doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter. The issue is micro inside us. We are too much into macro and we like neglect the micro. Micro is inside you. Now, again, to prove, there was an experimental proof available. And the experiment was, there was a group of experimenters, they were taken to a gym. Two different things were done. But primarily, the experiment was based on that one group will go and do something and one will just sit and imagine, visualize. And they compared the change. So in the group, first experiment, when the group which was in the gym, their strength, muscle strength went up by 30%, whereas the one just visualizing the weight training, they're increased by 13.5. Not zero, otherwise, it should be 30 and zero, but it was 13.5. Those second one who were trained physically showed the most improved in muscle strength by 53%, but those who were just mental, doing means not busy physically in the gym, but they were just doing mentally 35%. So 50 versus 35. Oh, sorry, 53 versus 35. Just by visualizing it. So when people talk about what is manifestation, visualization, you see there are clear scientific proof. So without going to the gym, you can reduce, whether you're working on your weight, strength, whatever, you can improve your strength, reduce your weight, or basically work on yourself. So how to overcome this time-space thing? The best way is to predict rather than, you can create your future. That's the best way to predict it, because rather than just thinking about it, why don't you create it? You drop your ego, your identity, be in the present moment, and live your life as per your story. Most of us get stuck that this thing happened in my life, so I cannot be happy. Change the story, change the script. You are the director, you are the producer of your movie. Whatever has happened in your mind, create a new story that never happened. This is what happened. Whether it becomes your placebo or whatever, don't worry. Change the story and live. So easy to change your frequency, your state of mind, state of physical being, emotional being. Just become your own writer. Change any particular part of your story that it didn't happen. And this is how you can change from, stuck into somebody, somewhere, sometime, and all those things become nothing, nowhere, no one, no time. Change your frequency, change your thoughts, change your story. Become a new character in your own life. And that is easy because you have full freedom. Choose whatever you want to be. Remember, masters, if affirmation and visualization is only before meditation, I recommend only 1 minute. And then once you start meditation, don't worry about it. Don't keep thinking. Meditation, you're just no. Thoughts may come, that's okay. Come back, observe your breath. But this affirmation and visualization is just before meditation, not during. Okay? You can create new future. You can become, you can drop your ego, identity, and all the things that you do not like, and you can be what you want to be. And then it will be much easier to be in the present moment. That means your meditation will improve. That means your sadhana will improve. How? You are getting into micro, not macro. Without any science, without any experiments, our masters, they knew it. Some of them, they were even that capable that they could exist at two places at the same time. We thought it's not possible and all. Only now, when science is making things more clearer, we start believing in it. Long story short, be in the micro or work on the micro, not so much the macro part. This is where the most fun, achievement, and the results are.